Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Damona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurospicy, ordained queerdo with a fascination for all things cycles, symbolism, and patterns.
And I am Moonkittee, your queer femme, poly kitchen witch, and proud geek. Today's topic is elemental magic, part one.
Part one. Look, there's a deep dive on elements, and we had to decide whether we were going to do this in one episode, two episodes, or four episodes, or five
Right.
episodes. I mean, I guess if we really want to get down to it, we're doing it in three episodes.
Kind of, sort of, really. Yeah, and we kind of split the difference and doing that. But no, it is. We were talking about it going, oh yeah, we'll do this in one episode. Then we started breaking it down and doing the outline for it and going, oh no. Oh no, 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 no. This is not gonna work.
So we paired up the elements
hmm
and decided we would do two in one episode. So we'll choose two elements. We're going to do deep dives on them. We'll talk about elemental magic and but what are our pairs for part one?
So, well, let's start with before we even dive into what our pairs are. Let's start with what do we even mean by when we're talking about elemental magic? I mean, it sounds like it should be straightforward. Elemental magic is working with the elements, right? But so what that means,
You mean the periodic table?
it could, in theory, because there are aspects of elementals in the elements of the periodic table, but that is a whole other topic that we could nerd out and dive into, which is really intriguing because now I want to go look at a periodic table. But okay, what we mean by that is working with the 4/5 elements, depending on how you interpret them. Also can refer to working with the cardinal directions and or elemental archetypes. So in this episode, to answer your question earlier, we are talking about working with earth and air.
All
So
right.
earth referring to cardinal direction is the north. Elemental archetypes are gnomes or trees, also associated with Mother Earth and the color green and a
Mm-hmm.
number of other things, but those are the kind of the basic building blocks of working with
To get
earth,
you into
keeping things
that mindset.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then for air, which is east, we're talking about sylphs, some fairy or fae, father sky, and the color yellow.
Yeah. Mother Earth and Father Sky. That's a good pair.
Exactly. So again, you can see why we
Yeah.
chose that pairing.
Yeah. All right. And then, we'll get into some of the other
hmm
elements because there are 4/5 and
Right. 4/5.
4/5, because nothing is ever solid except for the earth.
Right. What we're talking
So,
about.
speaking of the earth, let's do a deep dive. Tell me
Okay.
more about Mother Earth. Or why would we even work with elementals?
Oof, why would you even work with elementals? Oh God. To me, it's foundational.
It
It
is
is
basic.
primary, and we've had this discussion before. I came very late to doing deity work. Everything for me was initially in my first foray into witchcraft and magic was elemental and always has been the basis and foundation of my practice. So it's the easiest thing you see. It's the easiest thing to work with initially without requiring a lot of study or tools or expensive things that you need to get. It's the
Mm-hmm.
most accessible, I think, truly.
Oh, for sure. The other thing I want to say about elements, working with the elements, is that on one hand, it's like, oh, it's so basic. It's like basic level witch knowledge, right? It's one of the
hmm
first things we teach because when you're doing like ritual magic, you're calling in the four directions, you're calling in
Right.
the quarters. It's an element of that stacks upon the
hmm
magic that we do. So sometimes as we grow as witches, we're like, oh yeah, that's just stuff we learned. That's the
hmm
foundational stuff. And then you come back around to realizing like how important that is.
hmm
Like it anchors us into this life here on Earth,
hmm
surrounded by earth, air, fire, water, spirit. So
hmm
yeah. So I mean, I think having a good working relationship with the elements and understanding your different connections to them power empowers your magic.
And it scales. So you can learn the basic and have that be the foundational thing. But just like everything, the more you work with it, the more complicated and complex you can get with it. So it's not like that's basic, that's kitty magic, don't have to worry about it. No, there are some very, very complex things that you can do with elemental magic.
The rabbit holes always go deeper, which is why we split this into multiple episodes.
Exactly, exactly.
I know you mentioned some things, but like when we're working with Earth, how would we start going about working with Earth? Calling Earth in.
The simplest, easiest, and probably the most accessible for anyone is crystals, rocks, and stones, because they're
Yeah.
everywhere. And yes, you can buy crystals and everything else, but you can also pick up granite rock if you happen to live just on the ground, and other crystals and river rocks and
Quartz is
quartz
very
as very easy,
present
accessible, present almost
for
everywhere.
where we are, because I
Right.
live near in a valley where there's riverbeds and lakes.
But crystals, rocks, and stones. That's usually the first step in
Mm-hmm.
doing that.
Very Earth.
Very, very earth in any way, shape, or form. And how you work with them can really depend on what you want to do. There's simple things like putting quartz crystals in each room, crystal placements around a house, around your home or an altar. You can tuck them into your bra or your purse. You can make
I
jewelry
wear them
out
in
of
my bra.
them. You can do a lot of different things that are in a way that keep the
Mm-hmm.
essence of that stone or crystal with you. And each one has a whole different, each stone represents different kinds of things, has different properties,
Mm.
magical properties. Each stone has different magical properties,
Vibration, like some say they have different vibrations,
different
like
vibrations, how they work
different.
together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Just like herbs have different properties, same thing for crystals
right.
too. And again, you can start with those basic things of just having them around you, keeping them with you. And then
Mm-hmm.
talking about the next step leveling up, there are things like crystal grids that you
Mm-hmm.
can put together, which amplify a particular crystal's energy and vibration to create abundance and manifestation. So there's lots of different ways that the more you go and the fancier you can make your crystal grids. Again, the you start with the foundation level. It sounds simple, but you can make that exponentially more complicated and complex the more you work with any particular stones.
Yes, and crystal placement around
Mm-hmm.
your home, like in your thresholds or your windows for
Mm-hmm.
like protection, or on your altar for,
Mm-hmm.
different purposes, depending on, like if you want to, like just for an example, call in more like love energy into your life, you would put like rose quartz on your
Mm-hmm.
altar and, draw in that vibe, that sort of thing. So like you can also be really, I have crystals that live with some of my decks in
Mm-hmm.
the nooks and crannies of their boxes or in their bags with them. Just because I feel like they make good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Absolutely.
do. They
They do.
they do good energy swapping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have
cleansing and
some crystals in my tarot decks. I have some prosperity leaning crystals in my purse almost at all times. So drawing
so
money and
smart.
abundance into my purse. Yeah, so there's really cool things that you can work with it, but crystals aren't the only thing.
So for
So,
me, I think a lot about I have a friend who I house sit for, and one of the things that I have to make sure I do when I'm house sitting, because I don't have a green thumb at home,
hmm
but watering her house plants and
hmm
even her outside plants. And I just think when I'm able to like tend to the home and the like house plants and gardens and stuff like that, it's like very like connected to earth energy
hmm
and, Mother Earth. And just like I connect to trees a
hmm
lot.
Yes.
Like I love on trees.
hmm
So, anyways, I have a weird love for trees. And I even taught like my little agent of chaos
hmm
ADHD autism child to that, like the little grounding technique of like, do you need to go hug a tree? Would you feel
Yeah.
better if you hugged a tree? Because in their heart and soul they hug you back.
hmm No, I
But
love it.
even just tree spirits, plant spirits,
hmm
very earth stuff,
Yes.
mycelium.
Simple, basic. We're talking about it all from the kitchen witch planting a garden.
Exactly, right? Use
Garden magic is so real.
collecting herbs,
hmm
collecting your own herbs.
Tea, tea magic.
Oh, that's very earth elemental. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Also, from that kitchen witch perspective, recipes. We've
Right.
had episodes where I've gone over the magical properties of how I put what I put into my cooking and my food. That's also very much earth magic.
It is earth magic. In fact, it's
Hmm.
like all the elements, seep into all of our
Hmm.
magical traditions, whether we acknowledge them or not.
Exactly.
Right? And one of my absolute favorite ways to celebrate being a witch, being
Hmm.
pagan, is to attend rituals.
Hmm.
And my favorite rituals happen to be outdoors in nature, outdoors
Hmm.
rituals, being connected with the elements and the
Hmm.
earth, whatever that they may bring, because
Right.
we have
I just,
no control over them. We can invite them in, but
mhm.
we have no control over them.
No. Other ones. We've talked about this so often in many, many different episodes is salt. Salt is salt of the earth. Here we go back with our idioms and our
Hmm.
everything. So yeah, so salt, doors, windows, cleansing tools, crystals, enhancing your magic. Salt is
Hmm.
inherently earth magic.
And making your food taste better
Hmm.
sometimes
Enhancement.
in moderation.
Yes.
So, earth is really about grounding, it's
Hmm.
about strength, stability, structure, sustenance. We
Hmm.
eat
Hmm.
the fruits of the earth. You know, what the earth grows and what grows on the earth is what we take in as sustenance.
Hmm.
It's about being on life's journey, being manifest, being in physical form.
Hmm. So when you're walking up and talking and wanting to do earth magic, that is the nature of what you want, what it is good for. So and I
Yeah,
think,
what
like you
you're
said,
connecting with, like even just being in a body, sometimes
hmm,
we think of our flesh and our bones are of the earth.
hmm,
Sometimes they're also made of star stuff, and we could also get into other elements because
yes,
but being embodied is being in earth element.
hmm. And then because it's us and we have the link to tarot, tarot also is inherently has elemental aspects to it.
Yep.
So what is the elemental aspect of earth in tarot?
So in the minor arcana, they're split into four, and
Hmm.
so four different groups. So the earth, if you're looking for the earth element in tarot, you would look at like sometimes it's called the pentacles, the coins, discs, shields, the suit in the minor arcana that's about, physical things, prosperity, sometimes challenges to prosperity,
Hmm.
your physical well-being.
The material. And the material manifestation, I like to call it life's journey, is the
Right.
is the earth deck. Not that the other parts aren't dealing with life's journey, but it's that day to day how
Yes.
we go
The
about
menial.
things.
And
Media
also it
aspect.
can be honoring the seasons
Hmm.
and as time passes, because you think that time exists because the earth turns
Hmm.
and it's relative.
So,
Yeah. Not to get
so
not to get too deep there.
not to get too deep, but so yeah, so those are really good examples of ways to work with Earth, and there are
Yeah.
plenty of other ones out there. And I know we talk a lot about tarot decks, but we're going to have a whole episode on oracle decks too, sometimes in the future.
Yes.
And because oracle decks are great because they let you focus on a particular type of thing. And I know you have a couple of tarot decks, assume the oracle decks that are elemental focused, correct?
Yeah, so I have an oracle deck that I inherited from
Hmm.
Raven Moon that is elemental forces of creation, and it has messages from all five elements, and it's really cute and really straightforward and easy,
Hmm.
and you never know what you're gonna get. So I always keep that deck broken
Hmm.
down into its different elements because sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm feeling you need a message from fire today,
Hmm.
or maybe you need one of each, depending on how you want to build a spread. And then there's also one of my favorite decks is the spirit or animal spirits deck by the Wild Unknown.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different Wild Unknown decks. So there's the tarot, there's the
Hmm.
archetypes, there's the alchemy. I have a lot of them because I really like Kim Kranz's artwork.
Hmm.
But the animal spirits deck specifically is, different animal spirits, but they're put into elemental categories. So I
Hmm.
thought that was really wise because we can think of different animals even that would fall under one element or another or a
Hmm.
combination of a couple of
Right.
elements.
So that works really well if you are, like I said, wanting to break out. I love the idea of I am feeling earth energy or I need to work with earth. So let's pull out the earth aspect of an oracle,
Yep.
combine it with the tarot to make something else. So there are lots of different ways. And we won't touch on those anyway, because again, each deck has all four elements or all five elements
Yep.
in it. So we're kind of mentioning it here and then just pulled through all of
I'll
them.
bring them for our future episode of Oracle.
Right, right. Okay, so Earth. Anything else
Do
you
you
missed
think
on
we
Earth?
went deep enough in the earth rabbit hole? Here's my thing. If you're thinking of something as our listeners about earth elementals that we haven't mentioned, feel free to send us an email or a comment and go on our Instagram or one social media or another and let us know what you're thinking of when you work with the earth element.
Hmm. And we did, like I said, we mentioned Earth elementals, but yeah, there's other Earth elementals as well, because those are their
Mm-hmm.
own kind of spiritual energy and
Mm-hmm.
spiritual entity or guide,
Yeah,
whatever
I
you want to
love
call
hearing about
it.
what hearing what other people work with too, because
Hmm.
obviously I have my own
Right.
relationships that I've built over time with
Hmm.
the elements, but that's what where we build our own relationships with
Hmm.
them. So what's my way is not always your way, and there is no
Hmm.
one true way.
Exactly. Okay, so next question. We have Earth down. Now, how do we work with air?
A lot of different ways, but the my first one that always comes to mind is I love incense. I love burning
Hmm.
incense. It comes in so many different forms, cone, sticks, resins, and herbs, leaf herbs that you can
Hmm.
sprinkle on top of a coal on a burning surface. But I always like watch the smoke rising and the fragrant. I mean, honestly, even the Catholics did it, right? It's, in some traditions, incense and the element of air carries our prayers, carries our
Hmm.
thoughts. We talk about thought forms, thought have forms, and
Hmm.
I always think of it as, like oxygen is,
Hmm.
because that's interacting with us, but like air carrying thoughts, prayers, communication. And so I love watching smoke. I love the smoke of incense and letting
Hmm.
that, flutter and thinking of things that you're letting out into the world energetically.
I love that. To me, also the first thing that pops into my mind are wings, feathers, and
Mm,
fans. So that idea of movement, being able to move through air. And I often
mm.
think of big feathered wings, bird wings, dragon wings, all those kinds of things. I have a
Winged
connection with
things.
a sylph, an air elemental, and they just have these beautiful white, gorgeous feather wings. And I can see them diving and floating. And of course, again, I see dragon and things as they're floating and flying. So there is that connection with air. With wings, they sweep to move air out, draw up and down, and to bring in. Depending on how you shape and how you move, you can draw in or you can push out with air.
Mm. So thinking about drawing in and pushing out air, breath,
Hmm.
very fundamental and thing to be focusing on when you're doing meditation, but also in singing or spoken
Hmm.
word, you have to work really hard on your breath. Like I've been to concerts where I'm watching someone and I go, wow, this singer is an athlete.
Hmm.
Like they have so much control over their breath. And I was in choir and we focus on your diaphragm, strengthen your diaphragm, bring in air, make sure you're breathing in the right breaks, but like, you're literally working with the element of air as
Hmm.
we are speaking, as we
Hmm.
are communicating, as we are
Exactly.
given our creations of spoken word and song.
Hmm.
Karaoke, man,
Right. Love it.
that is an honoring of the air
And it's
in our
another good
lungs.
example of the multiple layers of air because breathing is the base level. We do it unconsciously. We do it all the time. You start thinking about meditation. That's a very specific next
Yeah.
level type of breathing. So that's taking it level up. Singing, karaoke is another level,
Yeah.
professional singing and mastery
Yeah.
of something that's very, very different levels. And another good example of how something as simple as air can get incredibly complicated the more you work with it and how you work with it.
Even true too, because I think music and poetry is the voice of the soul.
Hmm.
And I deeply connect sometimes with music to where I feel like I'm having a spiritual experience. The right song at the right time just pops
Hmm.
in, and it's just like, oh, this means something to me. And it can
Right.
become a deeply spiritual experience. So I just think it's like a really necessary part of this kind of soul expression.
Absolutely. With air comes wind. And this is one of those things that I love walking along a beach and just feeling the wind in my body, just opening my arms and just feeling it come across. Or I don't even have to be on the beach. I can be anywhere. I love fall,
Yeah.
winters and just close my eyes and just feel the breeze across my body. I love it so much. That wind magic that comes through. So feel the breeze in
Wind
your hair.
Wind can be so powerful and scary, but
Yes.
it can also be like enlivening and
Hmm.
a welcome when on a hot day,
Hmm.
But it's done some scary damage
Oh,
in like
absolutely.
hurricane and tornado situations. So
Yes.
it's like
Yeah.
never underestimate the power of any of the elements because
No. Yeah.
whoo, girl. But like one way that I always feel like connecting with wind, a couple of ways. Windows down,
Hmm.
driving on a nice day and letting the wind like blow through your hair,
Hmm.
or harnessing the wind a little bit and going and just flying a kite.
Hmm.
Like, let's
Yes.
go fly a kite, just getting
Yes.
into that, the joy of like feeling the tug of the wind and like this little dance that you can do with
Hmm.
it.
Or even
Yeah.
just opening the windows to your home and
Mm,
letting a fresh breeze come through. The first time
yes.
you do that after the staleness of winter and just feeling that whoosh
Mm.
of all the old stale air going out and the fresh stuff coming in. Again, that's its own kind of cleansing, clearing magic.
Yes, I love that you said the staleness of winter because like my favorite time of year is also like, in the fall
Hmm.
when you can start opening up your windows instead of using the air conditioner
Right.
to combat the heat. So I love being able to sleep and wake up to fresh air
Hmm.
and let the outside cool the inside sometimes.
Exactly. And then in that
That's my
aspect,
favorite.
yeah, me too. We have windows open too. But there, instead of letting out the staleness of winter, you are letting out the mechanicalness and chemicalness of, and the recycled nature
Mm,
of air from summer that we all use our air
right?
conditioning use to keep it cool. So same kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
that flow
Yep.
of movement and flow of making sure
Air.
air comes out, and it's just as essential to our body as the food that we eat. So all these elements are so important for how we tie everything
Mm-hmm.
together.
Exactly. Important to our life, which is why we give it, knowledge, acknowledgement, and honor.
Hmm.
So other, aspects that we focus on around air would be, I mentioned communication,
Hmm.
creativity, right? But, just the ability to have conversations,
Hmm.
turning thoughts into communication, but
Hmm.
also inspiration, like
Hmm.
feeling inspired, which I always think of that word broken down as inspirited. So
Hmm.
when you're inspired, it's like spirit is you're channeling spirit and you're helping, melding air and earth and spirit all together to
Hmm.
create. But wisdom and intellect are really big for the
Hmm.
air category as well. It's the air element in your body is very much in your head.
Hmm. But no, with it, air is a very, very mental. And when we're talking again
Yes.
about pulling it back into the tarot aspect, that is the suit of swords. And it is
Right.
no one's favorite suit that I know of. Anyway, swords is always a hard, hard suit because it's double-edged. It is
Yes,
cuts through
exactly.
obstacles. It's for better or worse, but it's all about the things that are in your head, whether that's intellect, whether that's anxiety.
Nightmares, fears. Yeah.
Exactly. Inspiration and nightmares and fears, they're all
Mm-hmm.
they're all in that head, in that mental realm of air.
Sometimes you have to work with that element and gain mastery so that your thoughts
Hmm.
don't run rampant over you and so that you can get some space from them and disconnect a little bit and realize that you are so much more than what you're thinking.
Hmm.
I always like to remind people in spirit, you are the observer of those thoughts. So
Hmm.
just remember that that's not who you are and it doesn't get to, because sometimes it can be really mean.
Hmm. And the one thing I love taking with the swords and the sword metaphor and the spoken communication metaphor that comes out of air, which are both of them, is that the pen is mightier than the sword, in
Mm,
that sense that we can choose to use our words to heal or to hurt. And sometimes the words that we use to hurt can be more painful than a physical wound or can be the healing that we need. So those words and that communication, that inspiration all comes down again to air centric magic.
Yep. Element to have to build a good relationship with, but I'm gonna
Yes.
have that argument for every element. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
like
And
these are
that's
the
the thing.
reasons we validate every element.
And that's the part of working with elemental magic is we'll go
Yes.
into a little bit. You can't really separate them. They are very separate, but everything, just like nature, just like our bodies, are all interconnected. But before we dive into that conversation, what are the different approaches that we can take with working with elemental magic?
Well, even elemental archetypes can get defined like in mythologies.
Mm-hmm.
They have personas, they have personalities, and sometimes they even have like certain deities that I would think are more one element or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, with Earth that we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about, I always think of like the Mother Earth,
Mm-hmm.
but also like in deity form, like Demeter, Gaia. Um, Mother Earth gets deified a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but all the elements kind of do. So they kind
Mm-hmm.
of even can show up in the connection. Well, and even in our astrology, are
Mm-hmm.
you an earth sign? Are you an air sign?
Right.
We talk about that a lot. Or what combination are you? I'm a double water air, my top
Mm-hmm.
three, double water fire. Yeah. So that's even, they show up in a lot of different ways. Sometimes we don't even think about, oh, that's an elemental aspect. So like for air, because we were talking about air, I am very connected to like Hermes or
Mm-hmm.
Mercury, which like Mercury, the planet of communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hermes, the messenger of the gods, a psychopomp that can go through, multiple layers of consciousness or existence, and very much an air elemental with his little winged sandals.
Mm-hmm. And you've
What air
got
deities?
air deities, others like that, but I was thinking of like fire and Prometheus, who brought fire to the humans for the first time,
Right.
or for water, Aphrodite, who's born of water. All of these things in the nature cycle and the instinctual aspect, I would say, of just the nature of being human. We tend
Yes.
to quantify and label
Mm-hmm.
things,
And
and everything is a or has an elemental aspect to it.
and we bring up a lot of Greek mythology
Hmm.
because that's like our background, like we know a lot
Right.
of. But like everybody who works with different pantheons, I'm sure,
Hmm.
could look and find elemental connections to the archetypes or deities or spirits that they like to work with. Even
Right.
just like, forest nymphs or water
Hmm.
nymphs.
Even like I know, for example, the Chinese zodiac has each of the 12 zodiac signs also has an elemental sign attached to it, though the Chinese has five elements that are different than the earth, air, fire,
Because
water.
isn't
It's
wood
earth,
like one
air,
of
yeah, wood, fire, air, and metal, water. But even still, it changes it. In this case, metal and wood would be what we would consider earth in the four cardinal direction, but they are different enough that I can see how they would be separated into two separate
mm-hmm,
elements.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's really all still connected, looking at it from different aspects, but still all connected.
And I always think of like I want to say some African diaspora traditions have like Mama Wata, and
Mm-hmm.
she has different names as well. But so even sometimes the elemental itself gets deified a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about air, we mentioned this in the beginning about directions
Mm-hmm.
and how that works with the elements. And
Mm-hmm.
it's always that's one of the biggest questions that comes up if you are doing your own magical practice and casting a circle or calling corners.
Mm-hmm.
Calling the corners means calling out the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west.
Not just
And
calling them out, but sometimes calling them in, inviting them in to
right,
witness your rite or to be, part of the magic. Yeah.
and what you're calling in is
Calling
usually
out to them.
calling out to the elemental of that
Mm-hmm.
direction to come in and
Mm-hmm.
witness
Right.
or support or something else. So again, that goes back to those sylphs and gnomes and
Mm-hmm.
nymphs and things that we were talking about earlier. But one of the biggest things that comes down to magic and a very big controversy is, do you start with north, earth, or do you start with air, east?
That's a great
So,
one. Somebody who chose their tradition, they called it the North Door. So it's in our tradition, we always start with North.
Hmm.
and we call Earth first.
Hmm.
But a lot of people, and I tend to, outside of that, this was their
Hmm.
personal tradition. A lot of people say that you call East first because that's where the sun is rising.
Rising sun.
So it's like beginning of the day, the rising sun, the beginning of your right. So you call in air and you end in, and I personally tend to like the idea of starting with air because as we'll talk about the other elements, you'll kind of learn all the
Hmm.
directions. But we have, north, east, south, west. So earth, air, fire, water.
Hmm.
And I kind of like the idea of starting with the most lofty, like least dense elemental
Hmm.
and working your way into a more density, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
air being the lightest, least, manifest, least dense, the most ideal idea, like, ethereal,
Hmm.
other than spirit, because spirit's its own thing. So, and then you get into fire, which is, has a presence, but also is kind of, not as dense as you would say
Hmm.
water would get, or than
Right.
earth itself. So I just kind of like the idea of working from air to fire, through water, and then up to earth. But a lot of people start at earth, and that's okay too, because there is
Hmm.
no one right way.
Exactly. No, for me, actually, it depends. I will flip evenly
That's
between north and east, depending on the type of ritual or manifestation that I'm working.
mm-hmm.
So, if it is something that is focused more on the material or physical plane, so abundance magic, career magic, stuff that relates to life
Mm.
in general, I tend to start at the north. Because again, we're talking about the north being the aspect of life path and abundance and career and material kinds of things. So I will start there at north. If it is more ethereal or a more inspiration, creativity, that kind of stuff, spirit work or calling on elementals and guides, I'll start with East. Because then again, it's the rising of the sun, it's that rising energy that draw in, that bringing of the new days. So that's where that kind of comes in. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it really
That makes a
depends.
lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that you really tailor it to the attention of your working, and that makes a whole lot of sense.
Right. I have yet to do this, but as we're thinking about it, I'm really now very, very interested in potentially seeing about calling the corners of the others first and seeing how that
All
impacts.
right.
So if I am dealing with something that is really creativity heavy based, then maybe starting calling my corners with South with fire, or really heavy emotional work starting
Mm-hmm.
with water. So I think that'll be the next thing I do. I haven't called the corners in a while. I'll be honest with it. That's just the nature of my own practice hasn't needed that kind of connection and energy. And I'm kind of feeling the drawback to it. I'm feeling the straw
Oh,
lately of coming back to my roots as I'm now starting to crystal hoard again, which is where my roots began. So I'm feeling the pull back to the elemental magic side. So that
me
will be
too.
coming back into my life, I'm sure. But yeah, no, this time around, as my own practice grows and increases,
Yeah.
as I want to see how the energy changes and shifts when I am calling the corners in different directions. Because, like you said, there is no one true way, and there shouldn't be
Yep.
one true way.
Yeah, that's because we're all different. But I
Yeah.
have also really fallen into a deeper relationship with an appreciation for the elementals and the
Mm,
elemental magic in a way that I was 100% guilty of being like, oh, that's just stuff I learned way back when. And yeah, I'm
mhm,
like, that's stuff everybody knows. Like, it's simple. And then I'm just like, again, like getting connected with these decks that
mhm.
are broken down by the elements and re-inspired by them is really why I wanted to do it as an episode and why we ended up at
Yes.
this rabbit hole in the first place. But just like the more we talk about it, it's just like, wow, these really are just like really powerful ideas,
Hmm.
really powerful energies, and very cool things to be aware of when it comes to working on our magic, our craft, our spirituality.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, that being said, welcome to
Look
Air and
forward.
Earth.
Yes, and we will be looking forward to episode 2 with
Yes.
fire and water.
Right.
Nope, I think we covered everything, but again, we're always open to hearing what other people have,
Hmm.
what their personal relationships are with the elements of air and earth. So,
Yes, please.
yeah, tell us what you think. So with that, I also just want to say thank you for listening to the Queer Witch Project. And if you want to give us some stars or thumbs up or subscription, just make sure you keep checking in. We'll keep making more, and we love hearing from you. So find us.
And if there's a topic you want to know more about or an episode topic you would like to suggest, please contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle @queerwitchproject. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself and love rebelliously.
Bye!
Yay!